I've gotten a lot of questions about this last contract that we just finished up in Nashville, Tennessee. That was our first crisis contract. So a lot of questions on the channel, a lot of people reaching out via email, want to know, what was it like? What do you think of crisis nursing? All that stuff. So I wanted to talk about that. I'm going to break this video down kind of easy for you guys, I hope, and informative into these topics. So crisis nursing, what does it even mean? How it's different than your typical travel contracts, the lengths of different crisis contracts, what to expect on that, and how to kind of be ready for it if you're willing to take the jump into crisis nursing. Hey everybody, welcome back to No Ordinary Path. My name's John. If you're new here, I am a travel nurse that travels around the country with my beautiful wife, our 3 kids, and a dog, and we live right there. That's our travel trailer that we affectionately call Wendy, and we go all over the United States. We make lots of different videos about our adventures and stuff like that, but today is something special. It is a Real Talk Tuesday travel nurse takeover. My boys are bouncing around on the dock over here on the lake. This is a beautiful little spot that we found in somewhere Kentucky, right by the lake. I love boondocking, and we are out here on our way to Kansas City after coming off this contract to spend some time with friends and family. Honestly, probably just family because, we're in the middle of a pandemic, right? All right. But the nice thing is there's nobody else out here, so no mask, and I can bring this to you guys. Okay, let's just get into it here. I've got notes, I've got coffee, we're ready to go. What's the difference between a typical contract for travel nurses and a crisis contract? Your normal contracts for travel nurses are gonna be kind of about your typical travel nursing shortages. You'll see a lot of staff nurses leave for things like school, obviously maternity leave, things like that. And so the company or the hospital will need to bring in nurses just to cover those kind of shorter term staffing issues. You also may see shortages just for like seasonal. It's not really shortages of their nurses, it's just they have a higher influx of patients. Think Arizona in the winter time. You get all the snowbirds that come down. Florida is the same. Colorado maybe for their ski seasons and stuff like that, when there is a higher influx of people into the state for whether it's vacation or whatever. They have an increased need. So that's where they draw the travel nurses from. Crisis nursing is very different. You're going to see a major shortage. Maybe it could be something like a disaster. Think like Katrina in New Orleans, or maybe something like strike nursing in California, where you have, a hospital that the union is involved with and they choose to strike. And so somebody has to come in and take care of those patients, and that's a type of crisis nursing. COVID, obviously, is having a major impact on our healthcare system right now, and so there's a huge need for nurses everywhere, not just the ICU. So that's maybe some of the main differences. A lot of it is just like the rationale and the reason behind why the hospital needs these new people. The lengths is also different, or can be. Here's the thing. Crisis contracts can vary in length from just a week. I've seen ones advertised for just a single week to 2 weeks, to upwards of a full 13-week typical nursing contract, or maybe even more than that. The majority are going to be 8 weeks to 10 weeks is what I'm seeing a lot out there on these crisis nursing agencies that they're looking for. So they are usually a little bit shorter term, mainly because they're so stinking expensive that the hospital doesn't want to commit to 13 weeks of this kind of pay. So you're going to see a little bit shorter contracts. All right, you're ready and considering doing this. Here's what you might expect to see. This is from my personal experience, and of course from other people that have commented on videos, to reached out to us personally, whether it's PMs or emails or stuff like that. This is what I hear to expect for your crisis nursing contract. Right off the bat, little to no orientation whatsoever. They want experienced nurses that can hit the ground utterly running. Oh, I'm sorry, you don't know the computer charting system because it's Meditech? And you haven't, or maybe you did, but it was 10 years ago? Too bad. Go! And they just kick you onto the floor. You might get 6 hours, you might get 4 hours with another nurse or something like that, but honestly, you guys, there is a lot of typical nursing contracts. You're going to go in, you have a week where you have orientation and you sit down and have like a 4-hour computer class, or you have a bunch of modules. There was still some modules to do for this, but there was no computer orientation. There was none of that. There was a very brief orientation to the CVICU, which I think I worked at like 4 times, and that was it. So be prepared for little to no orientation. Busy, hard, and heavy patients. Expect your staffing ratios to be higher than what you typically take. For an ICU nurse, the typical assignment ratio is 1 nurse to 2 patients because of their acuities. For a tele nurse, you may have 1 to 4, 1 to 5. When it's a crisis contract, plan for more. 1 to 3 for ICU at least, sometimes even more than that, depending on the area that you're working and the type of ICU that it is. All right, this one's gonna sound a little insensitive, but I don't mean it that way. It's just the honest, and this is real talk, you guys. When you're coming into these crisis contracts, don't expect the staff to necessarily be as friendly as your maybe typical travel contracts. That's not to say that you won't have good people there to help you out, but know that the staff are probably overloaded, exceptionally overburdened and overloaded, because this is a crisis. You know, they have been working in very difficult conditions where they have not had the support that they need, and now, yes, they're happy that you're there, but they also know, or at least have an idea of what you're going to be making as a crisis travel nurse versus what they're making hourly. And while the hospital is, helping them out by hiring you, they're not giving them any raises. And there is a bit of a burn for that. And I understand that completely. I would feel a little bummed out and a little irritated. Maybe not so much at the travel nurses, but sometimes it does overflow on you. So just kind of maybe go in with a little bit more thickened skin and be ready just to kind of jump in there for the work and not necessarily, to make a bunch of new friends. I hate to say that because a lot of travel nursing is about meeting new people and, establishing new relationships. But with a crisis contract, sometimes it's different. It's not always that case, but sometimes it is. Floating. Travel nursing is always about floating, but exceptionally so. Crisis contracts, you would be surprised because you'd think all of the need would be where you got hired on for your crisis rate. I'm going to say crisis like 100 times in this video. Not so much. The hospital needs help everywhere. They've been floating people all over the place. And if you're an ICU nurse, as a traveler, you're already known as the float pool anyway. So plan on being floated all over the place. I certainly was on this last one. All right. Why do we do this? What to expect? The money. Crazy good money, you guys, for nurses. Crazy good. I've got some examples here that I just pulled off of Fast Staff's website, and we'll talk a little more about them in the back. ICU nurse contract. This is per week money. $7,672. That's in New Jersey for ICU. Medical surgical nursing. $5,730. That's in Arizona. Progressive care or tele nursing. $6,132 in North Dakota. OR. $4,233 in New York. How about L&D? I know there's some L&D nurses out there. $4,572 in Oregon. And of course, emergency department, $7,210 in good old Cali. One other thing that's kind of unique to this. A lot of this money is at a higher tax rate because the stipends are so stinking high, your hourly rate has to make up for it a little bit. So if you're like me that was used to working for an agency where my hourly tax rate was like $20 and all the stipends were maxed out, they can't do that with these kind of crisis contracts because they're so high money. They max out the stipend as much as they can, but that also means that they have to put some of that money in the taxable rate. So you are still going to get a little bit taxed more than your usual. So these rates for the ICU nurse, the 76, 72 rate in New Jersey, your take home is going to be a little bit less than that, guys, but that's still per week making a ton of money. Also, you can understand making that kind of stuff, what your staff nurses are like at that hospital and how they might feel. So crazy good money. Those are some things to expect while you're on contract. So if I've maybe tempted you now a little bit with that last bit, here's what you may need to think about to be ready for this. You got to get your stuff together. And what I mean by that, and I'm going to make another video about it, I think someday, but what I mean by that is you got to have all of your certs, all of your, licensing, all of that stuff on a virtual document, ready to go, ready to send to them. When they have a contract or an offer for you, you need to be able to be ready in like 3 days. That also means physicals, drug tests, fit testing for N95s, all that stuff needs to be done ASAP. Where on a typical contract, maybe you've got a couple of weeks to get that thing done. Not this one, guys. It is like, we need you there yesterday. So get a move on and get it done as soon as possible. Plan to use the agency for travel and housing unless you've really got your stuff dialed in. And this is going to limit you too, because a lot of these agencies, I'm going to talk about them here in a second, are will call you up and say, hey, we've got something for you to start in like 3 days. Can you make it? And that's how a lot of this crisis nursing contract stuff goes, is it's very fast and they expect you to be there ASAP. And so a lot of these nurses, are just waiting for that phone call saying, hey, we're going to get you on a plane tomorrow. We're going to fly you to this apartment that we've already got set up for you. And then you need to be at work, in 2 days from now reporting. And that's how they do it. That is true rapid response nursing. If you're like us and you travel around in a RV, then you're limited a little bit to what crisis rates you can check. That doesn't mean you can't do it. Obviously we did it. You just may have to stay a little closer to home. You can certainly still find your own housing. You'll save a lot more money that way because they do take your housing expenses out of your stipends, of course, when you are using the agency. But it does make it a little bit easier, and that is the appeal for some people, is that, hey, I like that jet setter lifestyle where they're going to pay for all of this stuff. I just have to show up. My tickets are already taken care of. I get to fly around the United States. I get to, travel. They get Ubers and on taxis, and all that stuff is reimbursed or already paid for them. And it's just boom, 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 boom. And all they got to do is show up to work and everything else is in place. That is appealing to some people. Now for me and my family, we got windy. That's how we roll. But not everybody's that way. Lastly here, there are several different kinds of agencies out there. There are hundreds of travel nurse agencies out there, but there are ones that specialize specifically in crisis travel nursing. The first and foremost, the front runner is probably Fast Staff. It's FASTAFF, Fast Staff. And it is one of the first ones out there that actually did crisis response nursing. That is what this agency specializes in. But there are others like Crew 48, CRU 48, that also do a lot of crisis response. American Traveler is another one. Or you know what? A lot of times the one that you may be looking at currently or that you have been using can still get these contracts. Nevertheless, there are agencies that do specialize in this. And so there's maybe a little bit easier setup that way. You guys know me, I work with Atlas Med Staff a lot if you've been here with this channel, but for this last one, I did take this contract with Fast Staff. So stay tuned because you will have a great review coming up, not only on the hospital in Nashville, Tennessee, but I'm also going to bring you a different review on Fast Staff and how it was like working with that travel nurse agency. So thank you guys once again for being here. Really appreciate it. If you found the video informative or you liked it, just hit the thumbs up button. That always helps. Of course, subscribe to the channel if you're brand new. And let me know in the comments below if you got any other questions or concerns, or if you have anything else you would like to know about crisis travel nursing. Thanks, guys, and we'll see you out there.